Undercover owner gets chicken nuggets, sees inside box, and instantly calls restaurant manager. These aren't our nuggets. Noah Langston muttered the words to himself, his voice low, barely audible above the hum of the ceiling fans and the sizzle of deep fryers from the kitchen. He sat in a back corner booth of a Chicky Pop franchise on Westheimer Road in Houston, Texas, a spot chosen deliberately to stay out of view. The familiar red plastic tables, yellow paper napkins, and laminated menus hadn't changed since the early days of the chain. But something else had. He stared at the box in front of him. 10 nuggets. Supposedly. The smell hit him first. Instead of the rich, savory aroma he'd known for 2 decades, a signature, scent built on 11 spices and marinated buttermilk chicken, there was a faint sour tang, the unmistakable whiff of aged oil and meat past its prime. He picked one up. It was oddly smooth, greasy, too light in his hand. The crust should have been textured, crispy, golden brown. Instead, it was an unappetizing beige, spongy under slight pressure. Noah took a bite. Rubbery. Flat. A chemical aftertaste lingered on his tongue. He had personally crafted Chicky Pop's chicken nugget recipe in his mother's kitchen in Galveston in 2003. He could tell a fake from a mile away. But just to be sure, he checked under the liner in the box. There it was. A small printed slip of white paper tucked beneath the liner, processed and packed by Prime Meat Supplies. Noah's brow furrowed. That name wasn't familiar. He owned the entire supplier list, and Prime Meat had never been one of them. He snapped a picture of the nugget box, the label, and the food, then discreetly texted his VP of Operations, Alicia Thorne. Find everything we have on Prime Meat Supplies. This is urgent. A few seconds later, the reply flashed on his phone. Never heard of them. Definitely not on our supplier list. He looked around. It was a slow Tuesday night. Only a handful of customers sat scattered throughout the dining area. A teenage cashier leaned against the counter, scrolling on her phone. The music, something synth-heavy and auto-tune, drifted lazily through the space. Noah stood and walked to the counter, placing the nugget box gently on the surface. Hi there. Can I speak to your manager? The cashier didn't look up. Renee's in the back. I'll go get her. A few minutes later, a tall woman in her late 30s emerged. Blonde ponytail, wrinkled Chicky Pop polo shirt, clipboard in hand. She looked tired and already irritated. Yes, she asked. I had a question about my order, Noah said, keeping his voice calm. I ordered a 10-piece nugget box. They don't taste right, and the label says they came from Prime Meat Supplies. Renee glanced at the box, then at Noah. She folded her arms. So, I'm wondering if there's been a change in vendors. She rolled her eyes. Look, I don't know what kind of chicken expert you are, but people complain all the time about stupid things. That's a printing error. We've always had the same chicken. I don't believe this is a printing error, Noah replied, still polite. I'm familiar with Chicky Pop supply chain. I've never seen that vendor name before. She laughed. Well, then maybe you're wrong. Or maybe you're just having a bad day and want a free meal. Noah's jaw clenched. He pressed further. Could I see the invoice for your last chicken delivery? Her expression changed from dismissive to defensive. That's not public information, sir. And I have better things to do than explain our supply chain to you. She turned on her heel and walked back into the kitchen without another word. Noah exhaled slowly, trying to tamp down his fury. He returned to his booth and stared at the box again. He was used to being underestimated. That's how he built Chicky Pop from a food cart to a $250 million franchise network. He started with grit and chicken, then scaled with systems and heart. He believed in transparency, in employee dignity, in food quality. Now he was staring down the barrel of a betrayal. He opened his email and sent a message to Alicia. I want internal audit records for this store. hiring, ordering, everything. I'm going undercover for 72 hours. Nobody, not even the franchise owner, is to know. Schedule me as part-time. Kitchen shifts. Her reply came within minutes. Understood. Sending audit team background now. You'll be listed as Neil Larson. Training shift starts tomorrow, 3 p.m. Noah stared once more at the fake nugget, turning it in his hand. One nugget, one clue, one rod in a system he thought was airtight. He took a final bite, chewed and swallowed. Then he whispered to himself, time to find out how deep this goes. The next afternoon, at exactly 2:52 p.m., Noah Langston alias Neil Larson stepped through the back door of the same Chicky Pop location wearing a standard issue uniform. Black polo, visor cap, and non-slip shoes. A paper name tag clung to his chest like a loose Band-Aid. The shift manager barely glanced at him. You the new part-timer? Yes, ma'am, Noah said, masking his precise diction with a drawl he hadn't used since growing up in Galveston. Neil, she grunted. Clock in, Neil. You're on fryers. By 3 p.m., Noah stood next to the kitchen's deep fryers, watching battered nuggets drop into bubbling oil. The line cook beside him, a lanky 19-year-old with a mop of curly hair, introduced himself as Miguel. You're lucky, Miguel muttered, voice low so the manager couldn't hear. They usually throw new guys on trash or bathroom duty. Noah smiled. Guess I got the good shift. Miguel didn't smile back. The fryer area smelled like hot grease and stale chicken. Noah focused on memorizing the systems, where the deliveries came in, who signed for them, how the kitchen tracked inventory. He watched as battered chicken thawed in buckets marked only with black marker scribbled no supplier name, no origin, no lot number. That alone violated 3 protocols. But it wasn't until 9:17 p.m. after the dinner rush had died and the lobby lights dimmed for closing that Noah saw something that made his stomach drop. A white, unmarked van pulled up to the back delivery door. Miguel, who was wiping down prep tables, froze. Then whispered, "Watch this." Noah watched as Renee stepped out of the back office, adjusted her shirt, and greeted the van's driver with a quick handshake. No clipboard. No inspection, just a hurried unloading of cardboard boxes, many of them smudged and damp, all marked prime meat supplies. Is this normal? Noah asked. Miguel nodded. Happens twice a week. Always at night. Never logged. Does the regular supplier deliver during the day? Miguel glanced around before whispering, not in months. Before Noah could ask more, Renee reappeared and barked. Miguel, mop's not going to move itself. Miguel ducked away. But later, during break, he found Noah in the alley behind the store, sipping water from a bottle. Look, man, Miguel said cautiously. I don't know who you are, but you ain't just some guy needing part-time fryer work. Noah held his gaze. What makes you say that? You ask too many questions, Miguel said. And you listen too hard. Noah gave a wry smile. Is that a problem? Miguel hesitative. Not for me. But Renee? She's got ears everywhere. And she doesn't like people noticing too much. A long pause. Then Miguel added, that chicken? From prime meat? It ain't safe. I've seen green edges on it before we bred it. Sometimes it smells off. I asked once. And I got 2 shifts cut. Noah's chest tightened. Why not report it? Miguel scoffed. Who to? She's tight with Victor. That's her brother-in-law. He owns prime meat. They keep everything under the radar. Anyone who talks gets their hours queued or worse. Victor Crane. That was a name Noah would remember. Back inside, Noah faked casualness through the end of his shift. But every second added pressure to his chest. He saw the false invoices, the rotten chicken repackaged as premium, and the quiet terror among employees like Miguel who wanted to speak up but couldn't. At 11:15 p.m., Noah clocked out, thanked the shift lead, and walked to his car with the cooler slung in one hand. He didn't drive home. He drove straight to the rented lab Alicia had set up in a downtown tech facility. A young woman in a lab coat met him at the door. "Dr. Lynn," she said, nodding as she took the cooler. "We'll run microbial analysis, chemical breakdown, and match it against your corporate flavor profile." "How long?" 12 hours for the preliminary report. "We'll call you by morning." "Thank you," he said, meaning it. By the next morning at 8:04 a.m., his phone buzzed. "Mr. Langston, Dr. Lynn said. The samples contain abnormal levels of sodium tripolyphosphatase to mask texture in aging meat. Also, traces of formaldehyde preservative in one bag. That's illegal." Noah felt his breath hitch. "Formaldehyde?" "Yes, and the chicken content is only 63%. The rest is soy filler and water." "Your real nuggets?" 94% chicken. Noah ended the call and stared at the window of his rental apartment. Customers' families, kids, loyal patrons were eating that food under his brand name. He called Alicia. "Get the legal team. We're taking this to the feds." By noon, an anonymous report had been submitted to the FDA, and Alicia was already preparing a presentation for a corporate emergency meeting. But before any action could be taken publicly, Noah needed one more piece. Renee's confession. That evening, instead of dressing in his uniform, he arrived at the Chicky Pop store in a pressed navy suit. Renee was at the register, yelling at a trainee. When she turned and saw him, her face went pale. "Mr. Langston?" "Yes," he said calmly, removing his sunglasses. "Let's talk." She led him to the office, silent and tense. Once inside, she started. "Sir, if you'd only told me you were coming, I would have." "I'm not here for optics," he interrupted. "I'm here about the meat." She froze. "I've eaten it. I've seen the labels. I've watched the van, and I've tested the product. You're knowingly serving unsafe, substandard chicken labeled under false vendors. That's a felony." Renee's mouth opened, then shut. "You're going to tell me who else is involved, or I take this entire store down with you." There was a long pause. Finally, she sank into her chair. "It wasn't my idea. It's Victor, my brother-in-law. He said he could cut costs and boost profits. The owner of this franchise approved it. I just followed orders. You doctored inventory records." "Everyone does it," she whispered. "Not here," he replied. "Not anymore." Noah stood. "You're fired, effective immediately. The audit team will be here in 1 hour. I suggest you prepare your things." As he left the office, the staff watched silently. "Listen up," he said to the room. "I'm Noah Langston. I founded this company on quality and honesty. And starting today, this store gets both back." Miguel looked stunned, but slowly he started clapping. Then others followed. Noah turned back toward the front of the store and dialed Alicia again. "Clear it all," he said. "Contracts, licenses, franchise rights. This is ground zero now." The cleanup had begun. The next evening, Noah arrived at the Chicky Pop location 10 minutes before his scheduled shift. This time, he brought a cooler tucked into the trunk of his car, pre-labeled and ready. Inside were sterile bags, gloves, a scale, and vials tools he hadn't touched since the early days when food safety meant he inspected every batch himself. Tonight, he would be sending samples to the lab. At 3 p.m. sharp, he was back on the fryer station with Miguel. "Did you see the delivery last night?" Miguel asked in a low voice. Noah nodded. "I saw enough. I asked a question about it this morning," Miguel said, glancing toward the camera over the sink. "Renee pulled me aside and said if I liked my hours, I'd better keep my mouth shut." Noah's jaw clenched. "We'll handle that." Miguel blinked. "We—" But before Noah could say more, Renee walked into the kitchen. She surveyed the team like a queen inspecting peasants. "Tonight's delivery comes at 10. Neil, you're unloading it." Sure thing, Noah said. Glad to help. Renee smirked, then disappeared back into her office. By 9:45 p.m., Noah was waiting at the back door when the same unmarked white van rolled in. Two men unloaded the Boxesno uniforms, no IDs. One wore gloves, the other a tank top stained with grease. They didn't speak except to grunt when Noah asked for a packing slip. One handed him a smudged invoice. It didn't mention prime meat. Instead, it said, Bayou Wholesale, with no address or phone number. Noah helped carry the boxes into the walk-in fridge. When the men left, he stayed behind, opening the nearest carton. The stench hit immediately metallic, faintly sour. He pulled one bag out, checked the inner label. Packed by Prime Meat Supplies. Date, 3 weeks prior. Expiration, obscured by a black marker. He grabbed 2 bags, labeled them discreetly with initials and time, and tucked them into his cooler by the staff lockers. By the time he returned to the fryer line, his stomach had turned cold. At 11:35 p.m., he clocked out, thanked the shift lead, and walked to his car with the cooler slung in one hand. He didn't drive home. He drove straight to the rented lab Alicia had set up in a downtown tech facility. A young woman in a lab coat met him at the door. "Dr. Lynn," she said, nodding as she took the cooler. "We'll run microbial analysis, chemical breakdown, and match it against your corporate flavor profile." "How long?" 12 hours for the preliminary report. "We'll call you by morning." "Thank you," he said, meaning it. By the next morning at 8:04 a.m., his phone buzzed. "Mr. Langston, Dr. Lynn said. The samples contain abnormal levels of sodium tripolyphosphatase to mask texture in aging meat. Also, traces of formaldehyde preservative in one bag. That's illegal." Noah felt his breath hitch. "Formaldehyde?" "Yes, and the chicken content is only 63%. The rest is soy filler and water." "Your real nuggets?" 94% chicken. Noah ended the call and stared at the window of his rental apartment. Customers' families, kids, loyal patrons were eating that food under his brand name. He called Alicia. "Get the legal team. We're taking this to the feds." By noon, an anonymous report had been submitted to the FDA, and Alicia was already preparing a presentation for a corporate emergency meeting. But before any action could be taken publicly, Noah needed one more piece. Renee's confession. That evening, instead of dressing in his uniform, he arrived at the Chicky Pop store in a pressed navy suit. Renee was at the register, yelling at a trainee. When she turned and saw him, her face went pale. "Mr. Langston?" "Yes," he said calmly, removing his sunglasses. "Let's talk." She led him to the office, silent and tense. Once inside, she started. "Sir, if you'd only told me you were coming, I would have." "I'm not here for optics," he interrupted. "I'm here about the meat." She froze. "I've eaten it. I've seen the labels. I've watched the van, and I've tested the product. You're knowingly serving unsafe, substandard chicken labeled under false vendors. That's a felony." Renee's mouth opened, then shut. "You're going to tell me who else is involved, or I take this entire store down with you." There was a long pause. Finally, she sank into her chair. "It wasn't my idea. It's Victor, my brother-in-law. He said he could cut costs and boost profits. The owner of this franchise approved it. I just followed orders. You doctored inventory records." "Everyone does it," she whispered. "Not here," he replied. "Not anymore." Noah stood. "You're fired, effective immediately. The audit team will be here in 1 hour. I suggest you prepare your things." As he left the office, the staff watched silently. "Listen up," he said to the room. "I'm Noah Langston. I founded this company on quality and honesty. And starting today, this store gets both back." Miguel looked stunned, but slowly he started clapping. Then others followed. Noah turned back toward the front of the store and dialed Alicia again. Clear it all, he said. Contracts, licenses, franchise rights. This is ground zero now. The cleanup had begun. 3 days after Renee's firing, the Chicky Pop on Westheimer looked like a crime scene cleaned of its debris. The scent of bleach lingered beneath the usual fry, oil, and barbecue sauce, and a sign taped to the door read, "Closed for quality, review reopening soon." Inside, Noah stood at the center of the dining room in jeans and a gray Chicky Pop t-shirt. He wasn't there to hide anymore. Everyone on the floor knew who he was. The regional audit team combed through everything: invoices, schedules, payroll records. What they found confirmed what Noah had feared. Renee and 3 other managers were part of a circle operating across 6 Houston area stores. They'd swapped out meat deliveries, falsified documents, and split kickbacks from Victor Crane's Prime Meat Supplies. Noah met with the FBI 2 days prior, and their investigation was expanding fast. Prime Meat's facilities were raided. Victor was taken into custody, but Noah wasn't done yet. He had one more thing to do before handing the store over to its new interim manager. He gathered the remaining staff in the dining room, 6 crew members, including Miguel. "Thank you for staying," Noah began, arms folded. "What happened here is not your fault. But I won't lie to you, it hurt our brand, our customers, and our values." Miguel stood off to the side, arms crossed. He hadn't spoken much since Renee left. "You had every reason to speak up, and I'm sorry no one made it safe for you to do that," Noah continued. "That changes now." He motioned toward Alicia, who stepped forward with a folder. "We're launching an anonymous whistleblower hotline. Every store, every state. If something smells off literally or figuratively, you can report it. You'll be protected and compensated." The staff murmured among themselves. Also, Noah added, "As of this morning, I've appointed Miguel Alvarez interim general manager for this location." Heads turned. Miguel's eyes widened. "Sir, You earned it," Noah said. "You saw something wrong. You kept working. You helped fix it. That's what leadership looks like." Miguel nodded slowly. "Stand." "We're remodeling this store," Alicia added. "New equipment, new uniforms, new supplier traceability system. Everything scanned, everything logged. Nothing enters our kitchen without passing standards that come directly from HQ." The team applauded, some cautiously, others with growing enthusiasm. Later that evening, Noah sat with Miguel in the break room, sipping a soda. "You doing all right?" he asked. Miguel shook his head. "I've worked a lot of places, Mr. Langston. I never thought anyone at the top actually cared." Noah gave a small smile. "We get big. We get busy. But I started this company because I was broke and want to make good food the right way. I lost track. That's on me. You didn't have to come down here yourself." "I did," Noah replied, "because if I didn't see it myself, I wouldn't believe how bad it had gotten." Miguel was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What happens to Renee? She'll be facing charges fraud, food safety violations, maybe more. But I'm not interested in vengeance. I'm interested in fixing what she broke." The next morning, Noah returned to the Chicky Pop corporate office in Dallas. The boardroom was packed with directors, legal counsel, and franchise representatives. Alicia stood by his side, running a slideshow of what they'd uncovered: photographs, audit trails, supplier logs, and lab results. When the presentation ended, the room was silent. "We almost lost everything. That could have been any of us. That's why this won't be optional," Noah said. "Every franchise signs the new traceability agreement. Every supplier must be certified. Every employee has access to the reporting line. If you don't like it, you don't get to use our name." There were some grumbles, but more nods. An older board member raised his hand. "And what about you, Noah? What's next?" Noah looked out the window toward the horizon. "I'm not done yet," he said. The work starts now. Back in Houston 2 weeks later, the Westheimer store reopened. A small ribbon-cutting ceremony marked the occasion. Customers lined up down the block. The first order out of the kitchen, a 10-piece nugget meal. Noah took one, bit into it, and smiled. Crispy, juicy, perfectly seasoned. The way it was always meant to be. A month after the scandal broke, Noah Langston found himself back at the Chicky Pop headquarters. Not for meetings or damage control, but for something much quieter. He stood at the edge of the test kitchen, watching a young culinary intern, Mariah, carefully bread a batch of test nuggets. The air smelled of paprika, garlic, and something deeply nostalgic. The original recipe. His recipe. You ever think about the first time you made these? Alicia asked beside him. She held a clipboard, but wasn't reading it. Noah chuckled. Yeah, I was 22. My mom thought I was crazy. Said, nobody's gonna buy fried chicken out of a trailer, me, Joe. I prove her wrong. Mostly. Alicia smiled. You prove a lot of people wrong. He nodded, but didn't respond. The last month had been a blur, testifying to the FDA, hiring investigators, visiting over 20 franchises personally. He'd met employees who had been ignored, managers who had lost control, and customers who had quietly stopped trusting the food they loved. But slowly, change was taking root. Every store now had a digital dashboard displaying batch origins, temperatures, supplier details. Whistleblower reports had tripled and were being acted on swiftly. The brand wasn't just recovering. It was evolving. But Noah wasn't done. He returned to Houston 2 weeks later for a surprise dinner at the Westheimer store. No suit, no press, just a gray hoodie and jeans. Miguel was now officially manager. The store gleamed. Customers lined up to take selfies with a new wall mural one that showed a chicken-shaped phoenix rising from flames beneath the words, Trust, built fresh daily. Try the new spicy ranch, Miguel offered, handing him a nugget sample. Noah dipped it, took a bite. Perfect. I promoted Keisha, Miguel said proudly. She's running training now. Knows food safety better than anyone. Noah smiled. That's the kind of leadership we need. Then his phone buzzed. A message from HQ. Victor Crane's sentenced to 12 years. Prime Meat shut down permanently. Noah put his phone away. He walked out into the dining room, watched two teenagers laughing over a tray of nuggets, a mother feeding her toddler bites of mashed potatoes, a delivery driver picking up 3 large to-go bags. He inhaled the scent of fresh chicken, clean floors, a team laughing in the kitchen. This was what it was all about. He took a seat in the corner booth, the same one where it all started, and pulled out a small notebook. The first page was titled, Chicky Pop 2.0. He added one more bullet point under the heading, Always eat at the front lines. Across the store, Miguel caught his eye and nodded. Noah nodded back, the corners of his mouth rising. Because in the heart of the kitchen, in the hands of people who cared, trust had been rebuilt. One nugget at a time.